set up some kind of vibration because the proportions of the tunnels were exacting to create this vibratory effect, and that caused these huge things to set up a vibration. The vibration was transferred into some kind of... We're inside the second pyramid at Giza, some call the Khafre Pyramid. This is the main interior chamber, which conventional archaeology calls a tomb. However, the resonance inside here is so incredible that others believe that this was part of a energy generator, that the pyramids here were energy generating structures or vibrational structures and not built as the tombs of egotistical rulers.
Yeah, that might be.
Right here, yeah.
I think maybe,
So all the white here that we see.
So this is the exterior of what is called the second pyramid, or some call the Khafre Pyramid. The lower casing stone, that which is still here, is rose granite from the quarry at Aswan, and then it goes part way up, and then after that it's Tura limestone, which is almost pure calcium carbonate. And as part of the Giza power plant hypothesis of people such as engineer Christopher Dunn, the exterior skin to some degree acted as an insulator, and then the limestone that was the core is full of salts and minerals, and so it could actually conduct electricity. So again, it's like this was a giant resonating structure built thousands of years before the dynastic Egyptians. And this is what we see in many parts of the world, especially in Peru and Bolivia and here in Egypt. Structures thousands of years older than the famous culture which supposedly built them. But in fact, the story is that a very ancient, high-tech culture of some kind constructed not only the pyramids of the Giza Plateau, but a massive tunnel system underneath the Giza Plateau as well, going north, south, east, and west, and going for miles. Something happened to them, something catastrophic, and then afterwards, what we call the pharaohs, or the pharaonic Egyptians, or dynastic Egyptians, moved into the area about 5,000 years ago, and adopted these sites, of course, these places, and renamed them, and in some cases reused them. So, with the second pyramid here, this is where the stone was quarried in terms of the blocks themselves. And it's so heavily weathered that we can't see the tool marks involved. But not only that, here you can see that they cut the blocks down, starting at the top of the plateau, straight down like that, in order to remove the blocks and create this shape.
So obvious that the caves that Brian took us into. The wavelengths of the sound frequency. So if we believe these were for sound. But what I wanted to point out is that huge crack in the wall.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So if this was even made during the dynasty while the crack, or if it was made with the crack in here, they would usually fill it. Same like the crack we saw down there in the caves under.
Yeah.
Remember the huge crack in the wall that was filled with a material like cement?
Right.
Yeah, so if they had it here, if they had it during the structure, they would fill it with the same material, but this one looked like something shook it, that it isolated the whole gate, because this was originally one block. When we find things like this one, use this huge slab, and instead of like something like that half here, should work, especially that if you're gonna kiss it later.
This here is pretty good.
We would bolt the sides together. He said, no, this is one piece. How would you do this? He said, the guy required us. I have no idea.
They can't cut that inside corner.
That's an
That's a stickler, isn't it?
This is the second pyramid at Giza, and now we're going to approach the third, the smallest of the three, which some call Menkaure, but we simply, at the KEMET school, call this the third pyramid, because, again, we don't believe that these were in any way, shape, or form tombs of pharaohs, but were part of an energy system. Engineer Christopher Dunn was the man who initiated the theory that the series of three pyramids were in fact an energetic system, and that they were created quite possibly thousands of years prior to the dynastic Egyptians. There's a series of tunnels and shafts underneath this plateau that stretch for miles, north, south, east, and west. They go under these pyramids, and originally they carried water, and it was believed that water set up some kind of vibration because the proportions of the tunnels were exacting to create this vibratory effect, and that caused these huge things to set up a vibration. The vibration was transferred into some kind of energy, probably not electrical, but vibratory, and was used for, some say, to set up some kind of force field around the area, which allowed the builders to enter into much a higher state of consciousness than we are capable of today. Whether you believe it or not, it's quite a prominent theory. So here we see these weird knob-like things that are on many of the surfaces, and that is similar to ancient pre-Inca structures in Peru as well.
Look at this one. It's got some of the pink, but it's very similar to this one, but just streaks of the pink.
So originally this entire pyramid was encased in pink granite that came from Aswan, which is 500 miles away. So the question is, if all of this casing stone was removed afterwards by later cultures who wanted the material as for building their own buildings or statues or whatever, then why are there casing stones still at the bottom? Doesn't it make sense to start removing from the bottom and go upwards rather than from the top and come down? The theory, according to what we call the Giza power plant, or the energetic concept, is that several thousand years ago, these generators, these energy generators, there was a catastrophic event of some kind, and they literally went into, not overdrive, but they were over flooded with energy, and that caused this hyper vibration to the surface, and that may have been what caused the casing stones to literally peel off due to this hyper vibration to it, and that also turned the system off, and they haven't worked to this very day. But if you go inside these pyramids, you feel this residual energy that's still functioning. It's as though it's running at 1/10 of 1% of its original capacity, possibly. And then here you see mud brick, which is a very primitive form of building on the outside of megalithic. So clearly the mud brick comes later and is more primitive than the prior workmanship, and this is counter to conventional archaeology. So this is just one of several examples that we encounter, especially here in Egypt as well as in Peru and Bolivia, where you have more sophisticated technology existing prior to less sophisticated. Conventional scholarship tells us that we went from primitive people to sophisticated people, but in fact it's more likely that human civilization went in cycles, primitive to very high, to a collapse, to rising above and a collapse, and that's why sites in countries such as Egypt, here at the third pyramid, we're encountering very sophisticated work that pre-existed what is conventionally thought as dynastic work. The dynastic work, in fact, was better than the later Greek work, which was better than the Roman work, which came after that.
And the man in the chair, Shib, suit. And the jar shape called KEMET.
It's only because it's broken and fallen down. We can do that.
That's crazy, right?
Out!
Dude, that's crazy.
Not leaving!
That is amazing. That cannot be.
Of course not.
Amazing. Resonance, like you can hear it, like it rings like a bell. And the only reason we can do that is because the obelisk is broken and standing up, but they all could ring like bells. Musical instruments, harmony, resonance.
So what you've just witnessed is the fact that this segment of an obelisk resonates to one specific frequency and one frequency only. And that backs up the theory that the original function of the obelisk was not something to be written on to glorify a pharaoh or other kind of ruler, but in fact was designed to be tuned to a specific frequency because it was part of an ancient system of energy transmission of some kind. Possibly the Great Pyramid and other pyramids on the Giza Plateau were energy generators based on water traveling underneath the surface through tunnels, which I've been in, causing the Great Pyramid itself to resonate. And that almost like Wi-Fi, that signal went out to the obelisk, and the obelisk collected it and created a localized space of energy of some kind. Was it used for electricity? No, probably not. It's probably very subtle energy used for higher mental function. And if that is the case, that and the Great Pyramid and some other structures on the Giza Plateau predate the dynastic Egyptians. And when the dynastic Egyptians showed up 5,000 years ago, they simply inherited and renamed the structures themselves. And that's also why we do not find, and have not found, any bodies inside the pyramids, because they were not, at least in the case of the Giza Plateau, the three big pyramids, they were not created as tombs. They were created as energetic structure by a mysterious high-tech culture, whether you want to believe it or not. So we're at a site called Abu Ghurab, which is near the Giza Plateau. Actually, the Giza Plateau is massive. We're actually on the plateau. Abu Sir in the background. And this is the place that has the fascinating round bowls, and then this thing called the Hotep. So I've been told by Yusuf of the KEMET school that Hotep means energy, and this is one of the finest examples of lost ancient high technology in action. It consists of 5 pieces of calcite, or heavy quartz laden alabaster of a type. But it's supposedly the only one of its kind, or the only one of its kind that's still left. This is where we definitely see evidence of a tube drill. You see the diameter of it here. And these beautiful shaped curves and what were flat surfaces.
Here. This is tube drilling machining mark. Okay?
Wow.
And here is an edge of another one.
Yep.
You see? Just the edge. And here is an edge of another one. Huh?
Yeah.
Right there. So if we see the process, this tube drilling was coming and scooping, cutting the stone. Also from all the sides. So how this piece was manufactured with that kind of technology that was never mentioned in the ancient Egyptian depictions.
So also notice that they carefully selected the stone, cut it, and used it so that the layers are horizontal around the entire massive
This pyramid or this pyramid was
Hotep construction. It's also aligned to the cardinal points, as in Yusuf has just said, not true north, but magnetic north. But the 4 cardinal directions. But not just that, as magnificent as it is, there's also evidence of ancient core drilling as well, such as this example. And actually right next to it, fortunate for us, but unfortunate for the stone, is there's a cross section. One of the tube drill core holes is broken. But for us, we can see the pattern, the vertical striations, possibly of the cutter in action. And then also these incredibly curious bowls, which have holes in them. But even more significant are the ones over to this side. But these are very astonishing. Again, it's the calcite, possibly alabaster. They weren't originally in rows like this. But notice the holes that are in them.